In today's video, I will be reading and discussing The Echoing Green by William Blake, one of his poems in the songs of innocence and of experience, showing the two contrary states of the human soul. Now, this is the third poem in this series. There's the introduction, the shepherd, and the echoing green. This video and the poem can be read alone. But the point of this whole series of videos is I hope you'll come back to explore more of my videos in this series, because I'm going to be showing you how this fits together into a total whole, a total artistic, philosophical experience and understanding of human nature according to William Blake. Whether you agree with him or not is a separate question, but we're going to explore for the contemplation, for the sake of contemplation, this as a work of art. To do that, I'm going to read the poem, going to discuss it, and show you some of my methods. Now, as a reminder, the methodology essentially that I use is I just read the poem and I reread it aloud. I'm not going to do it more than once. I'll let you do that on your own, but I'll read it once. Then I just ask myself some really quick, what does it mean? What do I think is going on? What pops out? Anything. There's no right or wrong answers here. This is not about getting the right answers or what is the best that scholarly research has done in this field. The purpose of this whole experience with poetry is to help you, or to help the mind of your students or children, if you're a parent, train themselves and get the most out of their mind, what's in their head. That's what's important about literature and art. It's not about what's the best on the internet. It's about what's the best in here. Okay. So reading, quick first thoughts. Converse with verse is the third thing that I do. And then afterwards, I will give you a tip on, or really a technique for teachers on how to teach in the classical method, how to teach poetry in the classical 19th century method. And this comes from an anecdote from William Wordsworth, another contemporary poet of William Blake and my personal favorite. But we'll hold on to that. First, I'm going to do the reading. And I always recommend getting a book that has the plates handcrafted by William Blake and colored by William Blake next to the text itself, if you want to go along with me. The Echoing Green. The sun does arise and make happy the skies. The merry bells ring to welcome the spring. The skylark and thrush, the birds of the bush, sing louder around to the bell's cheerful sound, while our sports shall be seen on the echoing green. Old John with white hair does laugh away care, sitting under the oak among the old folk. They laugh at our play, and soon they all say, such were the joys when we all girls and boys in our youth time were seen on the echoing green. Till the little ones weary, no more can be merry. The sun does descend, and our sports have an end. Round the laps of their mothers, many sisters and brothers, like birds in their nest, are ready for rest, and sport no more seen on the darkening green. Now, I hope you understand that there's many ways to read this, but the first thing to do is to read it and read it aloud. If you have a family and you want to explore this work of art, I really encourage you to read it and to have other people, have your kids read it. If they are too young to read it, that's okay. This is a great group activity to just read a simple poem. You don't have to go into any kind of analysis. If you don't want to, you can go as deep or as shallow as you want. The joy of this is the same as listening to music. There's a joy, but the difference is that the emphasis is on the word. It's not on the melody. It's not on the harmony. It's not on the guitar or the drums. It's the word, the word, the word. The words are important. That's how we think. That's how we imagine it. That's how we build business plans. That's how we communicate. That's how we fall in love, is words, words, words. Okay. So the first thing, read it again yourself, or with your family or to a class, whatever you want, but read it as many times as you can and want to until you want to understand a little bit more. Second thing, what do you see going on before you do any real searching on the internet, analysis, or anything like that? What I see, and I'm trying to go back to the first time I saw it, was the first time I read it, was just a very simple scene of children and old people and parents at a park just playing and sitting and relaxing during the day. That's it. And I obviously caught the echoing green idea, the idea of echo. I mean, what's an echo? You say something and it's reflected back to you, the same thing, but a little bit fainter. That's what an echo is, right? You're in a cave and you yell, echo, echo, echo. We know what that is. It's the repeating, putting back into it. So I obviously got that right away. But what does that mean? And so this is an important theme to think about as we go through this. Okay, now that's just a quick little, what did I get out of it? The third thing is the converse with verse. This is my methodology of conversing. So that's a real conversation with a guy who's passed away many years ago. And that's true. So they call artists and poets crazy because we do this kind of thing. That's right. Let's all have a little bit of crazy. So I'm going to go through this and show you my method. This is all without notes. I'm just doing what I normally do. So the sun does arise and make happy the skies. Okay, so I automatically, I'm there's something I'm seeing with, there's this, the sun is going up and there's this happy sky. So I'm seeing a simple scene. Of course, William Blake does have the imagery that we can see of young mothers with children around them. The text itself has young boys on either side of it. On the first plate, there's people dancing in the background. There's people of all ages. There's an old man. So it's a variety of people. I'm going to continue the poem. The merry bells ring to welcome the spring. Okay, so I'm seeing this a continuation of the simple, happy thought of merry bells, the skylark and thrush. We have new birds, I think. I'm not a bird person, but I know those are birds, and those are particularly birds that are related to sound, I believe. The birds of the bush sing louder around to the bell's cheerful sound, while our sports shall be seen on the echoing green. So it's I'm seeing some kind of omniscient narrator some narrator is looking at this scene. He's seeing this, or maybe he's remembering to the bell's cheerful sound while our sports. So maybe it's a universal, like a choral, I'm thinking. Our sports, so it's kids playing, are seen. That's this first stanza. Okay, that's it. I'm just seeing like a happy scene, kids playing. Pretty simple. On the echoing green. Old John with white hair. So now I'm saying, okay, so I want to picture in my head this old John guy. There's a guy, old man with white hair, does laugh away care. So he's got some cares, some responsibilities, some oldness to him. As I'm 39 years old, I understand a little bit about that. Not as much as a 70, 80-year-old man, but I have some understanding of the world of cares and responsibilities and troubles and challenges. So he's doing that. But what is he doing? He's laughing away care. Why? He's sitting under the oak among the old folk. All the old folk, okay, they laugh at our play. It's supposed to be like the children are saying this hour in some sense. And soon they all say, such were the joys when we all girls and boys in our youth time were seen on the echoing green. So, okay, what I'm seeing in this as I'm hearing the poet sing to me is that this old man is laughing away the cares because he's reflecting on his youth. And so in this relationship to the echoing, I'm seeing something important and I know this even as a 39-year-old man, of thinking back to the carelessness of my youth, and when I was a teacher, there was a joy and a comfort as an adult in seeing their joyfulness, their carelessness in life. Even though I'm full of cares, I have bills to pay. I have relationships I'm trying to not lose. I have jobs I'm trying to develop and get better at. I have things that I'm really building and trying to do, and there's a lot of pain and difficulty and challenge. Those kids don't have that. They're just having fun. It's good. And there's something in that to me in this continuation of life. And, that's me as a 39-year-old. I can imagine as an old man, it's even different. It's more comforting in a sense. So we could talk about that, I think. The last stanza. Till the little ones weary, no more can be merry. The sun does descend and our sports have an end. Round the laps of their mothers, many sisters and brothers. Okay, wait, so I'm seeing something here. So reading this poem, one thing I'm gathering now is there's a 1, 2, 3 stanzas, and there's simply a beginning, middle, and end, right? So the sun is rising. You have this old man sitting around with these people, and they're looking at the youthful children playing, and they're laughing and remembering the echoing green from their youth. But then we have this ending of the little ones weary. So the little ones are going tired. There's no more can be merry. So merriness has an end. I'm kidding. The sun descends. We know that. Our sports have an end. Around the laps of their mothers, many sisters and brothers, like birds in their nest, are ready for rest. And sports no more seen on the darkening green. So the ending is the ending of the day. It's the ending of life, I think. I think that's what I'm seeing from this too. And I know that's like maybe a big stretch from your first reading, but the reason I'm thinking that is just because there's the relationship that the poet has given between the young people, the mothers, and the old John and the other old people, that they're all laughing. And what are the cares of the elderly? Well, there's a lot of cares: rheumatism, pain, sickness, and death. That's one of the most common cares you're going to think about when you think about old John, versus young kids are not thinking about death. So I think you have a totality of the human experience from birth to death, all's held within 3 simple stanzas. And he's putting this echoing. Now, when we're reading the poem by itself, there's a different reading we're going to have when we look at the total book of poetry. And this poem, I think, is a very important one for understanding the theme, the broader message that William Blake's trying to get across. Remember, the title is showing the 2 contrary states of the human soul. So you have innocence, usually we think of that as just children, and you have experience, usually we just think of that as adults. But there's more to it than that, because now he's introduced this concept of echoes. So the concept of echoes is that old John feels something from the youth that he's seeing playing on the greens. He feels something. He's calmed because of it. His cares are released because of just being around young people and watching them and laughing away at them. That's it. Watching them play. He can't play. He's got bad knees. He can't play like they can. But just being around that, he can enjoy it. And there's a kind of confidence he can have about the continuation of life. And there's an immortality in that echoing. Like the echo, we think about if we yell into space, we put radio transmitters into space, and it'll just go for eternity. It'll just keep going and going and going. That's, I think, kind of what we're seeing here, is this continuation of the human experience beyond death. So there's something beyond death. But here's the other interesting thing, which I'm not going to touch on much here, because it's too early in the book of poems to talk about that. I don't want to ruin the whole book. But think about it even from the other side. So there's an echo has an origin, a source, and it has the return, and it has a back and forth. So where is the echo? Where is the origin? Is it just one echo chamber of just going, continually in this same endeavor? And then I do want to briefly look at the illustration. You have old John under a tree. There's dancing. This is a village square. It's a very simple, clean, sinless, type of almost pagan with its imagery, this pastoral imagery. But then you have old John in the second carving. You have this vine going up. You have old John showing these kids, where to go. You have a woman with her children. You have a little boy in green. And then on the right, I've always found this fascinating. And I want you to think about what you think this means, but I'll give you a little hint. You have a boy casually lying on the vine that surrounds the text. And he's reaching down to feed grapes to a young girl. Now, the young girl is not as young as some of the other children. She's not 5 years old. She seems to be at a certain age in life when the attention of the boy is interesting to her in a different way than it was before. And the reason I think this is interesting is because this is in the Songs of Innocence. So this is before, what do you think of when you think of innocence? So there's something there. There's a shading of something here. That's why the last line is the darkening green. So it's not the echoing green. It's no longer echoing at the end. There's a kind of ceasing, but there's something he's trying to play with in this relationship between the young children and the old people, the symbiotic relationship. And we talked about that in the other poem about the shepherd and even in the introduction. Those are my 3 ways of going about reading a poem. Remember, just read it a couple times, read it aloud. Just ask yourself, what is anything you got out of it? What did you see? What words stuck out to you? What images? Anything. It doesn't matter. Don't worry about getting it right. Just what's in your head. As an exercise, if you're teaching this to, let's say, 7th graders, you could read the poem to them, have a piece of paper with them there, and then just have them read it aloud to themselves or as a group, or break it up in groups, and then let them write out what comes to mind, anything that comes to mind. Now, here's a simple technique of teaching poetry that I learned in reading biographies about the great poet William Wordsworth. So they used to do this in classrooms in better grammar schools, but this is important because we often forget the real meaning and importance of teaching literature, and particularly poetry. We don't do it in America very often. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to just put on a piece of paper to children, and it doesn't matter what age they are, but you don't want to just give them a sheet of paper, hand it out, and just say, read it, or read it aloud, or read it to yourself, and here's a couple facts about William Blake. The first thing you want to do as a teacher, as a parent, is you want to just simply have them sit down and you read it to them the first time. Let them hear the words from you. Now, I think you should practice the poem if you can. If not, just do your best. Then you can go slowly through it and have them write down the words. So you go stanza by stanza. This is the 18th century, or this is the ancient or the older method, not ancient necessarily, but it's also ancient, right? You have them scribble down to if they have it, or they used to make them memorize it because paper was more scarce, or what they used for writing. But paper's not scarce for us. Have them write it by hand. I believe in that. The sun does arise and make happy the skies, and have them write this down. Yes, take a little bit of time. The merry bells ring to welcome the spring. So they're going to get a practice with words that we no longer get today, or very rarely, which is from hearing from one person and deciphering and spelling and putting it on paper from yours. That method of translation is really critical in the training of a conscious mind. Now, you have them do it. You don't tell them when the breaks are and the commas are. That's not important. Just tell them to get the words down in the way that they think it should be put down. And then the next thing you can do is you can have different volunteers, or again, you could break them into groups, and you have them discuss what they think is going on. Do what I said with the converse with verse. And as an instructor, you can help guide them in this. And it's not about getting the right answer. It's about helping them see, well, what do you think about, what does an echo mean? Give me some examples of echoing. What do you think is happening with, what is a skylark and a thrush? Do you know what that is? Well, look it up. Go look. And this is where the instruction comes in handy in helping them have a better relationship with words. I'm a big advocate of not having multiple choice tests, or even having students think about tests while they are doing any kind of literature work. The goal here is to develop their mind, not to get them good at a test. And so what you want to do is, if you're going to have them do anything, it's going to be either reciting to the best of their abilities, which means using their individual mind wherever they are, and or writing. Writing is the critical way of doing this. and give them, say in a paragraph, sum up what you think is going on. And it doesn't matter where they are. That's where they are now. Keep doing this and they'll get better and better. In order to get good at this, you need to do this hundreds of times over the course of years, reading hundreds of poems. This is a process that needs to be integrated into your lives more often, or a little bit more. And I think hundreds of poems sounds daunting, but if you think about the length of this doesn't even need to be a full class. This could be, half a class. This could be an exercise you do. And as you get better and as the students are older, this could be a warm up at the beginning of class. You could give them a poem. You can either recite it. There's other ways. You don't have to do that every time. That's just in the early years, I think, a good technique. But for, if the junior high or high school kids, just have the poem up, have them write it down themselves. I do think that's important. And then have, what do they think it's about? Discuss it with someone else, give a quick little, every day a new student, have them speak up their thoughts on the poem. And that's it. That's the technique. So that is my video on the echoing green. I hope you'll check out the Shepherd, the introduction, and this whole video series. Also, go to troubadourmag.com. I'll have links below as we go through to give you more in-depth analysis on the meter, the foot, the breakdown of the imagery and personification, just all the little things you might want to add if you do want to add more to your lesson plans or understanding of the poem. But remember my 3 techniques. The most important thing, forget everything else. Read it. Read it aloud. That's it. That's number 1. What is it about? Whatever is to your mind. It doesn't matter if you get nothing. Just anything you can think of. And then converse with verse. So thank you very much, and I'll see you next time.